So what the heck was that? This last weekend, or June 19 through 21st, depending on when you're watching this, RallyX made their international debut in the United States, being the 4th attempt at making Rallycross work here. Now this video was made with the assumption that you know at least a little bit about Rallycross, specifically the American side, but if not, I would highly recommend this video to introduce you to the sport, and this video to introduce you in all the drama fest that was Nitrocross near the end of that championship. Some of you may remember the Global Rallycross Championship, which was the United States' first real attempt at Rallycross, unless you count Rally America, which I don't. The Global Rallycross Championship was extremely divisive during its short but impactful time in the sport. It was wildly different to traditional Rallycross, with extremely difficult and creative tracks, being somewhere between an entertainment program and a sporting event. It brought new fans, sponsors, drivers, manufacturers, and tracks. A lot of tracks, good lord guys! Eventually the teams and manufacturers pulled out of the championship. GRC fumbled around, and in the end ARX took off. ARX was a much more traditional styled Rallycross championship, and honestly I can't find a single person who actually cared about it. 2 years and we reach a similar story with teams and manufacturers pulling out. Pivot! This is Nitro Rallycross. Through 2018 and 19, Nitro World Games held an utterly insane version of Rallycross, bringing a non-points round to the ARX. They had their amazing season in 2021, but the supercars were getting way too expensive to run. See, GRC, ARX, and even Rally America had mostly raced on circuit conversions or street circuits, temporary Rallycross tracks without much staying power by themselves. Nitro still had a few temporary tracks, but also had multiple purpose-built circuits for Rallycross. See, over here in the States, Rallycross just wasn't really a thing until 2010, and the same could be said for traditional rallying. The original idea with Rallycross was to take these rally cars, boost their power, and set them loose on a circuit. But instead of rally cars, we had Baja trucks. Short course off-road is effectively the American version of Rallycross, having originated from using faster versions of Class 8 Baja trucks, although it resembles European autocross much more than Rallycross now. Because of this, most of these tracks are fully dirt, with multiple jumps, hairpins, and even some whoops and rough stuff. So when taking an RX-1 Rallycross car in them, you often see many mechanical problems with these cars' suspensions. Unlike some other Rallycross championships, Nitro Rallycross actually did not force the teams to go electric. When the FC1 was debuted in 2022, the majority of teams all willingly switched over to it, as it was vastly more cost-effective to run than the supercars, and they haven't left since. The FC2s were developed later as a means of reintroducing supercars into the mix, as gas cars will always have a place in Rallycross. Thanks, Andreas. The remainder of Nitrocross came and went, but even scoring the first major manufacturer, Dodge, just was not enough to save them. Last year, RallyX announced their plans to give Rallycross one last try in the States, and their exhibition in Crandon went swimmingly. I would know because I was there. That takes us to this year, where RallyX has arrived with a lot of stuff to unpack. Right? Well, not really. Firstly, I am rather shocked no FC5 or crosscar drivers registered for this race. Open two-wheel drive is a bit more understandable, as convincing the Stage Rally or SCCA boys to get out of their comfort zone is rather difficult, but I would have thought FC5 would have at least had a few drivers, especially given the commitment from some big-name crosscar brands. What's more important though is that Hypercar and Supercar had some decently sized grids with a lot of sponsors and drivers that are new to Rallycross, featuring the Ericsson brothers racing for OMSE as well as Pro 4 driver Jimmy Henderson. JC Race Technic fielded the ever-impressive Robin Larson, as well as Michaela Allen-Kontolitsky. Hinton Motorsport made their grand return to Rallycross in the US, featuring a very uniquely styled FC1 driven by Timmy Hansen, where Brad DeBerti would pilot the second car. Wait, we got robbed of a Polaris Rallycross car, didn't we? Optima Batteries would add Lia Block to their lineup, where Mitchell DeYoung would fill in for Tanner Foust this round. And finally, Tommy Hellman would get the call up to drive Step Promotions' new FC1. Whew, okay. I won't go super deep into the racing here, but day one's action was decent with some pretty good battles all throughout the grid in both classes. Or round one would be the more correct wording, as day one was washed out, which, let's be real, was the right decision. You know it's over when the cars are slipping and sliding all over the starting grid. Round two, though, was where everything kicked off. Timmy Hansen rolled his beautiful FC1 in Hypercar and thankfully was okay afterwards. A controversial move in Supercars, an unjust penalty, and some slang and twang between the teams were only the start of what this race had to offer. The Hypercar final was great, and after a dramatic start, Robin Larson, who won the previous round, had a weird landing and spun. This led to a dramatic fight between Kevin Eriksson, Tommy Hellman, and Jimmy Henderson. This was easily one of the best races we've ever seen with the FC1 cars, and I can't wait to see more. This track is just really good for these cars, and it feels weird to actually race Rallycross at Crandon when we all thought it would be impossible beforehand. Look, I get it's easy to go all keyboard warrior on RallyX right now, but 19 cars and a track of this pedigree is nothing to scoff at on debut. Some of these newer drivers have quite a large following, and frankly, it's what the sport needs right now. However, despite all of the good from this event, there also needs to be a bit of criticism. So here's everything that went wrong and how it could be fixed for future rounds. It's fair to say there's a few big omissions from this list in terms of cars and teams, and I'm not mentioning Dreyer Reinbold right now. Especially as the team owner Dennis Reinbold recently passed away, their absence is understandable, and I wish everyone surrounding the team nothing but the best. Having said that, Dodge's absence is slightly more concerning. Let's be real, we all assumed that they would leave after the fall of Nitrocross, but they didn't. They stuck around one more year and did the Crandon Expo race last year. I assumed they'd be back this season, but evidently not. I also assumed Volvo CE would debut this season as well. They only left the World Championship because they only wanted to race electric rallycross, and, well, this is electric rallycross, so where are they? Hopefully we'll get some manufacturers next season, especially with Chevrolet, Hyundai, Dodge, and Ford all selling performance electric SUVs in the US, but I'd also like to shout out Timmy Hansen for being the only driver to make his car look unique, even without being associated by a manufacturer. Not like it matters when. A common complaint I've seen is that these cars and tracks aren't real rallycross, with people saying that they're more like elaborate autocross tracks, and honestly, fair enough. Nitrocross raced on 11 unique tracks, and only 7 could be considered rallycross tracks with a mix of asphalt and dirt. Granted, that is only 4 tracks that were more of a short course off-road track, but that's also skewed because of Linden Hill and Strackness from 2022. Maybe we could eventually see some asphalt around Crandon, and honestly, I wouldn't mind it. At least an asphalt Joker would be nice to see. I am curious, let me know where you guys would put a Joker. I'd say somewhere around here, but I look forward to seeing what this creative community can cook up. It's fair to say that the FC2 chassis is the only reason why we can run supercars here. Anything other than a Subaru would get obliterated, and frankly, the FC2s looked like they got obliterated. There's still a lot of room for improvement with the suspension setup, as whatever company that makes the FC2 body panels is eating good tonight. The FC1s did a good job tanking everything as expected, but those FC2s need a bit more work for using more short course tracks. I'm assuming it's possible to get some of the former Nitro Rallycross venues back next season, so an improved suspension setup will be necessary, especially as this is by far one of the most mechanically challenging rallycross circuits on the planet. And honestly, it doesn't look like it's going away anytime soon. But none of that matters when there's one problem that's way above all of the others. This will probably be the most controversial part of the video, but in all honesty, in this specific instance, I don't mind the paywall. Asking RallyX to bring all of their staff and all of their camera equipment overseas back and forth multiple times a year is immensely stupid. And without a title sponsor, I get that everyone has to eat. The need for a service like Flow Sports is understandable, but Flow Sports are by far one of the most overrated streaming services I have ever had the misfortune of using. They never communicate anything, bring out literally no character to the events they cover, and you can't tell me that their cameras are any newer than 2011, because what the hell is this? No, actually, this is on par with the 2011 Global Rallycross Championship in terms of broadcasting. And even then, they still had a better graphics package. I want to tear into this thing specifically, because in what universe would this ever be considered decent? Firstly, it's illegible. My eyesight is still really good, and I can only barely make out what this says. Secondly, Jesse, why are you green? I can actually tell you that. It's because whoever was operating the graphics truck just forgot to chroma key it out. Now granted, look, I wasn't there, I'm rather just guessing after working in a broadcasting environment for multiple years myself. But you can't look me dead in the eyes and say that this hideous thing was a creative decision. On top of that, there is no Joker indicator, so it's a good thing nobody who watches Rallycross has a memory disorder where that could be a problem. I hate to say it, but another problem was the commentators. I'm sure Tiffany Stone is a great person in the paddock, but get her out of the booth. She's clearly not interested in Rallycross, and especially the electric cars. I fully understand that these cars will probably always be controversial, but at least put someone in the booth who wants to talk up your product. Maybe have her exclusively doing paddock and interviews for now. A similar story could be said for Jim Beaver. Is he the worst commentator on the planet? No. But sometimes it feels like he tries to be. A lot of information he said was just wrong, like how Rallycross is only a European sport, Rallycross drivers aren't experienced in wet weather, and how gravel and dirt are the same thing. It seriously feels like the RallyX social media admin and or Chris Leone are the only people being transparent about everything, where the commentary team, Racer TV, and Flow Sports are all being wishy-washy about everything. Can we take a moment to appreciate Chris, because frankly, his commentary was awesome! He brings so much passion and energy, and it feels like he has the same spark that Andrew Coley is known for. If Andrew Coley is unavailable, then I would love to see Josh Mertz from iRacing's NASA Rallycross Championship commentate this series, as well as a former driver, someone like Scott Speed, Bucky Lassick, Steve Arpin, or Patrick Sandell. But let's cut to the chase, because in all honesty, I think RallyX have done a pretty good job with their first round here in the United States, especially considering this is their debut event. So, is there a company responsible for the events that happened? Yes, because in what world would somebody know they needed to have both Flow Sports and Racer TV for the scrap? This was said a grand total of never. I went back and read through all of the articles about Racer TV, and not once did they ever say what they're broadcasting and what you need to watch it. They both do such a terrible job of promoting any of their racing series. What do you mean round 1 semis weren't filmed? Why didn't the audience know that only the heats were behind a paywall? 5 years of being involved with visual communication, and I have never seen such an outlandishly poor effort from a streaming service. For as terrible as a platform as Rumble and Rally TV are, they're at least transparent with how evil they are, and we never had these problems with them. I don't know how both Racer and Flow Sports fumbled so hard, but after watching 5 Rallycross Championships fold, with 4 being in the United States, I will not allow them to add another one to this list. If anyone from either Racer TV or Flow Sports are watching, I'm sorry, but get it together. I'm done for now. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, support RallyX, and most importantly, go watch Rallycross.